Hello, my name is Musa Qureshi. I'm here to do a series of videos with Chris Day. The first video is going to be about whistleblowing. So, Chris, we all know about whistleblowers. They're people who skive off to the Daily Mail and tell them everything that's going wrong with the NHS today. Isn't that what whistleblowing is?
Well, I think that's what most people think whistleblowing is, but all it really is giving relevant information about a relevant topic. So in a doctor's case, that would be, say, resourcing, safety, staffing numbers. So giving relevant information to your employer. So, Musa, what if I told you that you whistleblow all of the time, and you've probably whistleblown in the last year?
I'd say that's completely ridiculous, Chris. I've never got in any trouble at work. I'm not the kind of person who goes off and blags what's going on in the NHS. How could I possibly have whistleblown?
Have you ever done an audit?
Chris, you know I've done an audit.
How do I know that,
every
Musa?
doctor has to have done an audit. This is part of our career progression. We all do audits.
So you've done an audit?
Yes, of course I have. But how is that whistleblowing?
Well, I mentioned that giving relevant information to your employer is about safety or a relevant topic related to the health and the service. So when you present an audit, obviously it's fine if your findings are not at all controversial and they inform the department that they are adhering to all standards. But I think you could imagine a set of circumstances where if you weren't the bringer of such good news during an audit, you might run into some difficulty, and you could see how that might turn into something that could escalate into something that you might need to be protected from. I mean, obviously it doesn't happen like that most of the time, but the point is, when you do an audit, you are giving relevant information. And that's what whistleblowing is.
Can I just stop you there for a minute? So take my example. I'm a haematologist. If I do an audit, for instance, on neutropenic sepsis, which is a very life-threatening condition, so obviously it does have impact on patient healthcare, I find out that patients aren't being treated according to the NICE guidelines, does that mean I could be making a protected disclosure?
Well, if you were giving relevant information about safety or resourcing in the health service, and you had a reasonable belief that what you were saying was true, the whistleblowing law, the Public Interest Disclosure Act, would say that you have a statutory right, that means the law gives you a right, to have your career or your future employment protected.
Well, there's a funny thing is that actually the whole purpose of an audit is actually to try and find when we're not meeting standards. So actually it would seem that there's almost a conflict between the audit process and whistleblowing. Can I just move on a little bit, Chris? And I just want to ask a little bit. A lot of people might be interested in finding out exactly what happened in your case. What were you doing an audit, or what happened to you?
Well, I mean, I obviously have to be careful with what I say about my individual case, but I would say it boils down to an intensive care unit that didn't adhere to staffing standards at night, and then routinely, and then one night 2 doctors not showing up for work, and that making the situation worse. So we discussed about protected disclosure. So my protected disclosure, or giving of relevant information, involved a telephone call and an email, simply giving a senior NHS manager factual information about the situation and making a suggestion that we needed more staff. So that was my whistleblowing.
But Chris, I'm just reading here from the GMC, Good Medical Practice. What the GMC actually says is you must take prompt action if you think that patient safety, dignity or comfort is or may be seriously compromised. Isn't that what you were doing at that night in ITU?
Well, I mean, you make an important point. Of course, I mean, yes, you would describe what I was doing. You'd describe presenting an audit like that. There's loads of different examples of protected disclosures you can think of. Say A&E reg moving a patient, or telling a site manager a sick patient can't move out of resus, and that causing a bit of a dispute about targets. There are loads and loads of examples where a doctor makes a protected disclosure, and you quite rightly identify that the Medical Act actually imposes a statutory duty on a doctor to act on a safety concern. So that's really where the judgment in my case becomes incredibly difficult for a doctor, because you have the Medical Act imposing a duty on a doctor to raise a safety concern, and then you have the sort of judgment in my case saying their career or their employment is not protected.
So Chris, we're running out of time, but I just want to cover one last topic very quickly, which is really about the way you've explained whistleblowing. There's this problem between your GMC duty, which every doctor has to whistleblow effectively, and the problem you've had, which is that your whistleblowing, and in fact it seems whistleblowing in general for junior doctors isn't protected at the moment. I'm just interested in this new guardian role that's going to be promoted with the new contract, because doesn't that effectively mean that every doctor who is on the new contract will have to whistleblow to the guardian? And doesn't that open every doctor up to potential whistleblowing protection issues?
I mean that's a brilliant point. The guardian system is built on a doctor's ability to make a protected disclosure. So you combine that with the judgment in my case that actually says the same whistleblowing protection that applies to all other NHS staff doesn't actually apply to a junior doctor. And then you add to the mix a guardian system where the entire guardian system is built on a doctor's ability to make a protected disclosure. I mean, you have a recipe for disaster, don't you?
I think so, Chris. Okay, I think we have to stop now and we'll move on to the next video soon.
Can't wait.